Welcome, welcome, welcome again, family. Y'all are here with me again. And if y'all are here with me, that means guess what? It's time to talk. I'd like to thank Knowledge and Nonsense again. And great, I saw you saw the Calzura commercial. Great news about that. If you haven't checked them out, we have officially have them now on your one store, so you can actually see the IFU for the shoes. If you haven't seen them, definitely check them out. Um, just a recap from last week, we did talk a lot about the culture and what it means to a new person coming into a department and how the culture could actually either help you retain that person or you lose that person. Um, Great conversation from everybody. So, what we decided this week, what we're going to do, we're going to go into we retained the person, they're willing to stay, we got them adjusted to the department, and now what do you do with the new person? So what I've done is I've invited some very special family members of mine to help us talk through the support that we give somebody, the training, what's next. They're in the department, they're brand new. What do we do now? So without further ado, I've invited Ms. Arlene Bush and Mr. Brian Reynolds to come in. Hi, Arlene, how are you?
I'm fine, sir. Thanks for having me on the show.
Brian, how are you, sir?
I can't complain. Thank you so much for the invite.
Not a problem. I'm glad that we are here, being able to discuss these important issues that plague so many departments around the country. And now it's just time for us to give the answers that everybody's been wanting to know. So last week we did talk a lot about culture and how that affects somebody coming in the department, brand new, doesn't know anything about store processing, and what either a toxic environment can do, and how we combat that to keep that person in the department. So we've made it past that hurdle. The person's in the department, and now we have to train them. They know nothing about sterile processing. So if you had that new person, what resources do you offer them as it pertains to training for sterile processing? Arlene?
Well, we start out with training in our workflow. So we'll start out in decon and kind of work through our department that way. And then reiterate if it's somebody who's uncertified that, we'll get through our training, we'll concentrate on how we do it here. And then I want you to get into a technician book real quickly while you're still, that spark is still there, that drive, because that's only going to make your spark bigger, right? Once you start getting the understanding of how we do it, now we need you to figure out why we do it.
Okay. And Brian, same scenario.
Yeah, I agree. I think I know for me, with a lot of my new staff, I know how passionate I am about what we do and how we do it and the reasons and the whys behind it. Um, as someone stated so clearly, when you understand the scientific aspects of why we do what we do and where it has to be done, then I think people will be better employees because of it, because you can't just tell someone to do something, and you and I and everybody in this knows that when someone comes and tell you to do something, you want to know why.
Right.
So I try to make sure that they understand the whys behind why we have to do it. I also like getting out myself and try to get out there and do it with them, simply because when they know that you know it and they understand the processes that if I'm asking you to do it, I'm asking you to do it because I've already done it. I'm never going to tell you to
Okay.
do something I can't do myself. And I think that a lot of us are at a point in time right now to where we can't have that hands-on experience with the new staff that comes in. We're giving them to someone else. So I do try to take the time to spend time with the new staff, especially in decon, because look, put me in decon with some music, I'm good to go.
So interesting point. Like, so when you say from both of y'all standpoint, the training, how do we accomplish that in today's climate? We know a lot of people are dealing with shortages. Um, Everybody may not have a lead or senior techs or supervisors, and it may be just the manager. So, do you have what type of program does that look like when you're saying a new person, you're putting them in training? What kind of program does that look like?
Okay. So asking me and Arlene that question is a little it's
Ours are
different
the
because
same.
I can answer it from let me answer it from the private sector portion of
Okay.
it. When I worked in the private sector, I worked in the private sector for 21 years. So when I worked in the private sector, I was short staffed. There was times to where I worked as staff. I took call. I did everything my staff did because I did not have the members, and there was a lot of particular times where it was always about productivity. I would tell anybody, I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, you need a degree to do sterile processing." Not really, but you do need the understanding and the background to know how to look at a budget and those particular things. Um, you got people out here that are mathematicians that's never stepped inside of a college. Um, I looked at the budget. I understood my budget. I asked questions. Wait a minute. Why am I in the negative when my productivity, when I do the math, I should be at this in the black, but I'm in the red. So by understanding the budget and understanding those processes, I understood that the person that I worked for was taking staff members that they had because they were actually over and they were putting them in my budget.
Okay.
So because of that, I had to work as staff. I wasn't able to get anybody. We were averaging 52 cases a day, and I had 7 people for 52 cases a day. And everything had to be up and sterile
Yeah.
the next morning at 7 o'clock that morning. So it was easy to go and work as staff because if I had to go and work in decon, I just took that person with me. If I had to go and process trays, I took that person with me. So and I didn't get a chance to do a lot of the um, management stuff. I didn't get a chance to do a lot of the things where you sat to the table and we were that voice that needed to be heard. I didn't because I worked as staff. So in that retrospect, when I worked in the private sector, that's what I dealt with for 21 years. It's probably changed because in the last 10 years, there's been a lot of changes. So, some people don't work as staff like I did. I worked as staff. I was a part of that number that everybody did, as well as being responsible for managing the staff and understanding what was done. If something wasn't up, I took the heat just like everybody else did.
So from your private sector standpoint, you were the trainer, educator, manager. You walked that employee through the whole process.
Correct.
So, okay, I'll let Arlene answer from the government side, and then I have a tie-in question for both of it.
Okay.
Okay, so on the government side, we really do a 90-day, and it can even go longer. Um, and they go through all of our areas. Now, some government places don't do scopes, but my facility does do scopes, so they have to go through that. And I want my staff to understand what the expectation is while they're in each area, and if people learn differently, so not everybody is going to flow at the same rate or the same time. You may have 5 people start. This is when I was in private healthcare. I was at a really large healthcare system here in Florida, and we would have people start all the time. So there was a lot of different people at different levels, different intervals. Some people had experience, some didn't. Some knew no instruments whatsoever. So their training really was according to how they learned. Some people were book people. Some people were hands-on learners. Some people needed you to, show them what to do, and they could reciprocate it. So it's kind of trying to figure out how they learn and maneuver the training to that, but still hit. You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, just in a way that they could understand it.
Okay, just off subject, I will say it is a great testament to what y'all have given to this field. The chat is going crazy with hello Arlene, hello Brian, great this, great that. I appreciate it. I love it. That's the energy that I love for this type of show because you see the appreciation from your peers of what you've offered to this business, and that's why this is important so that we can talk to everybody about this. So that's the thing that I like about being on Time to Talk is that you get to talk to your peers. So, given both of those scenarios, I heard you say somebody learns at a different pace. Heard Brian say he takes the person with him wherever he goes. I heard 90 days thrown out there. So, does that, if you are the person, how strict is the regimen as far as is it 90 days, is it 6 months? what is your timeline for getting that person to be able to work by themselves? I know you said everybody learns differently.
They do.
So does it stretch depending on the person? Is it set in stone? What is your program like as far as how many weeks in this area, how many weeks in that area, or is it even dictated by that?
And so if it's somebody with zero experience, they
Yeah,
need to be able to walk through our process, speak our process, not just return demonstration. You need to be able to speak it, right? That's
before they
truly
move
how someone's competent.
before they
Um,
move to the next, before they leave decon, they need to give you that full
they really
playback.
do. You need to be able to understand it because you may be standing on the line when a surveyor comes. You need to be able to know where to access it if you don't know. And I need you to stop, think, and then react. Don't
Okay.
be afraid to ask the question.
And in my particular situation, I don't. Some people compartmentalize our staff. You know, they have certain people that only do scopes. They have certain people that
Yeah.
only do neuro. They have certain people that only do. I don't. I rotate my entire staff through every
Yes.
particular situation every week. So
Okay.
every week you're in that area and you're doing the processes in that area. So you get a week in that particular area. And, you know, I saw, I think Tammy just posted something, know your audience. You got to know your strong people. You got to know those particular people that you know that has that passion to make sure, look, everybody may not want to be a supervisor, but some people
Right.
love educating. So when I know, like I have several staff members that love the education part of it. They love being able to tell other people, you know, why they do what they do and the intricate parts of it. So if I know that and I know that that person is going to be in those particular areas, I utilize those people. Some people say, "Oh, you play favorites." I treat everybody the same. If you come to me and ask me, "Hey, Brian, you know my lights are going to be turned off. I need $100." I'm going to do it whether I like you or not. You are never going to know that. But if I know that you're that person that's going to make sure and ensure that the person that I'm giving you is going to walk away understanding the processes of what we do, why we do it, and the rationale behind it, then I'm going to do that. I'm going to use that. You know,
Yeah.
even in our VA system, we have what we call visits. In those particular visits, there's maybe one or two different hospitals that put people in one place and they stay there, and they wonder how I'm able to do it. I move everybody. Everybody's going to be paid the same salary. So here's my thing: if, for a lack of better words, if Veronica isn't going to be here today, and Marie is, and Veronica is the one that's always in there, but yet and still she called out today, and we got 50 scopes that needs to be done. Guess what? I need Marie to know what Veronica is doing
Right.
because that happens. And I think we as leaders and as those particular people who are in sterile processing that's supposed to make this happen, we feel like, oh, but that person's not strong. Well, how do you expect for them to get strong if you keep babysitting them, putting them in something that they love?
Exactly.
They got to know it all because people get sick. Life isn't promised to none of us. Tomorrow's not promised. The next hour isn't promised. You never know what could happen. So I need to make sure that Veronica, Marie, Tammy, Arlene, I need to make sure that my entire staff understands how to do everything within the department because you just never know.
What
So,
about if a coworker calls you out on a process, right?
right.
So if you live in silos and only, let's say, stay in decontam, but today you're forced to run the sterilizer, like Brian said, I need everybody to be able to move around and I need everybody to be included in the discussion when we talk about the process you're expected to do in that area. So if you're not moving around, you're not building yourself. You're not going to be empowered. You're probably not going to stay.
And then
So,
there was a question that says, how do you help address people who only want to work in assembly, etc.? Well, I address it this way. And I'm going to go back to when I was in the private sector. We all have a PD. There's a performance description, a PD that we have to follow. In that PD, when you came and you applied for this job, that PD did not say that you were only going to be doing sterilization. That
Mhm.
PD didn't only say that you were never going to be in decon. It didn't say you were not going to do roundings to pick up pumps. It didn't say you weren't going to be responsible for doing decon These are all the things when we go and we look at a PD, that PD has every particular job aspect that you're supposed to do within sterile processing. When I signed my name up and I gave you all my information, including my social, I'm telling you that I am prepared to do whatever it is that you asked me to do for this job. So I tell my staff all the time, if you want people to see you and understand that what you do is a profession just like theirs, then I
Right.
need you to act accordingly. I don't need you coming in here, sitting down, being a baby, passive, stumping your feet, saying what you are and are not going to do. Because guess what? If they messed up on your paycheck, you at my door screaming and yelling and cussing because you didn't get your paycheck. So guess what? Give me my work and I'm going to give you your pay.
So in that aspect, do y'all do daily assignments? Is it? I heard you say something about a week. So is it they in that
I do
assignment for
weekly
that
assignments.
week, and then they rotate to the next week,
Correct.
so on and so forth?
So I have 8 different places. I have 8 different in the VA system. Anything that's considered to be reusable medical
Yeah.
devices, they change the name.
Okay.
Anything that's reusable medical devices, it comes through my area. GI does not do their scopes. We do them.
Okay.
Dermatology, lump and bumps, GYN, all
Yeah.
of the clinics come through us.
Dental, ENT,
IR, cath lab, everything is processed in one particular area.
Yeah.
So we have everything housed up under one area. So for me, I have 8 different stations. Well, I have 10 different areas. And I rotate each person through all 10 of those particular areas. Do I have people that don't like? I have people that do not like doing scopes. I'm being honest with you. They don't. But those particular people that don't like doing them, if you go in there when they're doing the scopes, they're doing it right every single time because they don't want to hear my mouth. And they want to, and they make, and I mean that in the most sincerest way, because I tell them all the time, you have people who we in our situation, I work at the VA, but I have family members that are seen there. I have family members that have actually come there to be serviced. I've had 2 of my family members that in my building that passed away that they had to, I've stood in the hallway and saluted as they walk by. So I'm always going to be passionate about what we do because there's people. It can be your family, it can be your mom, it can be your dad, it can be those particular things. So I try to encourage my staff to do what needs to be done. And when you go to these leadership classes, the thing that's being spoken about now is preparing people for your job. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make sure that they understand every particular thing that I know. I'm not holding back anything. That's what we used to do back in the day. Well, I'm not going to tell you this because that way they got to keep me because you don't know how to do it. No, I'm going to have diarrhea of the aspect because I'm going to give it all to you. But I think Miss Golden said it best. You can't take it until I give it to you. And if I'm not giving it up, you can't have it. So
That's it. That's actually another show, Brian, where we talk about those people that you have that type of leadership that say, hey, the department can't run unless I'm there. So that's a different, yeah, we're going to get into that at another time. But I see where you went with that. But I agree with all of y'all. My department is the same. I have the endo department as part of mine. And we actually have our techs that sit over there and we rotate to give them breaks and everything. So, yes, I think it's very important that everybody knows every aspect of every part of SPD in that scenario. So now, with that said, when you're, I'm gonna ask a question, then we gotta take a quick commercial. Is that training enough? Think about that, and then I heard Arlene allude to it earlier. How soon is it? What is too soon for them to have the books if they know nothing about sterile processing? After our commercial, we're gonna get into that. Welcome back, everybody. Again, a big shout out to Calzura. If you haven't tried the shoes, please reach out to them. They are wonderful. And again, time to talk. Use that promo code and get you a discount. And again, like I said, we are now on One Source Docs, so you can actually look up the IFU for the shoes, and everybody knows that what you're doing is correct as it pertains to the shoes. So, right before the commercial, we asked, is the one-on-one training, well, let me back up a little bit. So if you don't have preceptors and you're doing the training and you still have to be your manager, you still have to be in charge of your department. So I get that part. How much of the training would be enough for them if you're constantly moving back and forth? And how soon is too soon for books? I see some people come in the department and right away they want the manuals, not knowing anything about sterile processing.
Right.
So what is too soon, and how long should the training be?
Well, I this is going because I see a question, but I'm gonna answer yours as well. Um, in most situations, when you have new people coming to the department, there was a question that said I wouldn't start them in decon to start the initial training, and I'm gonna disagree with that. I'm gonna start them in decon simply because I need them to understand the importance of why these instruments need to be cleaned appropriately and properly. If you put that person in decon, they're going to see every particular aspect and every particular instrument that's used within the facility.
Yep.
If they don't understand how to process it, if they don't understand how to clean it, if they don't understand the intricate parts of it, whether it comes apart, if you put it together, and those types of things, then how can you expect for them to do it on the other side? Because on the other side, if there's a mistake and somebody sends it through and it's put together, how would they know? They would never know. But if you train the person in decon of what to look for and the aspects of it, why it should be cleaned a certain way, what the ins and outs of those particular things are, what to take apart, what not to take apart. There's a lot of instruments that come apart that we don't even know that they come apart. So if I don't teach you that on the front end, then how can I expect for you to understand it if I put you on the back end first and then go backwards?
Right.
Now, as far as for when it's too soon, you can walk somebody through the process and show people things, but just like you stated, and also Arlene, some people like to read things. They want to see it, they want to read it, they want to understand that process.
Retain it.
When a person walks in, you set that tone of, okay,
Yep.
you're going to ask that question. They're interviewing you, you're interviewing them. What part of this do you want to get from this? Is this just a job for you? Do you think it's a career?
Yeah.
What aspects would you like to do? Are there places that you want to go? What do you see yourself being in this job in the next 3 years? People say 5, but I say 3. Let's keep it real. In the next 3 years, sometimes people say, okay, I'm only going to get this a year and a half and I'm gone. So
Right.
I need me personally, and I can only speak from what Brian does, and me and Arlene, we do things together, so I know we're the same with this. I want to know where your head is and what you want to do. I'm going to help you get out of this what you need to get out of it, and how much investment am I going to put into making sure that you have what you need if you're just going to do this for a little bit until the next best thing and you're gone.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree with,
I definitely think that decon should be first because it's the beginning of our process.
right.
You know what I mean? For sterile processing.
And as Jesse said, that's how you're going to see if people really want to stay.
Exactly.
And I was just gonna say the same thing. I've had people that we've started on Prep and Pack, went through that whole training program, got them to decon, and then that was the end of the training. They don't come back after that. And so now
Yeah.
we started the decon process. But back to giving them the book immediately. So do you not think that if you give them the manuals before they know what they're doing, will it distract them from the training because they're immediately trying to go through the book and say, I got to learn ABC. And then when they get into your decon, which is another part of what I'm going to ask, what happens when what's in the book doesn't match what you're doing?
Are you talking about the certification?
Yes, like
Manual?
for them going through when I say manuals, that's what I mean. Like for them to sit for the CRCST and you give them the books, and then as they're training with you,
I honestly think that, me personally, you're giving the person the 90 days, and in those 90 days,
Yeah.
um, in what in the VA system is a little different. In those 90 days, we have SOP competencies for everything. When I say everything, everything.
We're
We
at
all know that
200 and something.
an autoclave is an autoclave is an autoclave. You walk up to it, you push the button. But guess what? With us, we got to have an autoclave. There's a SOP that, and you in that SOP, you got to tell the person you got to push the button and you got to watch it.
It legit lists every
But
thing you should do. You do this, then you do this, then you do this, then you do that, then
and
you do
it's
this.
detailed down to the point, and I love that. And I'm not gonna lie, I think that's one of the best things that I've seen when it comes to that. But if I'm trying to get this person through the 90 days, I agree. I don't think it should be within that time frame, because we are trying to get them to understand the processes of what we're doing. We're trying to get them to understand the aspects of what they're actually putting their hands on every single day. And I guess once you get that person through the 90 days, then let's talk about getting you certified, and let's talk about moving to the next level to ensure that you really understand and get why we're doing what we're doing and the reason behind it. And that's when I would say do it. Me personally, I would do it after the 90 days, because
Yeah.
you can't expect for a person to read the book and retain that, and then try to also retain all the things that are happening with decon, understanding how to process this, and you got to take this apart, and this has to soak for 5 minutes, this has to soak for 8 minutes, this can't go in bleach, this has to use something different. It's too much. I wouldn't do that to a person. It's just too much. So I
It's
would
like
say,
data overload.
I would say
Really,
at
in the
least
first 3
after the
months,
first 3
to
months.
try to understand what the certification book is telling them when they've just learned a new task. So they really don't know what the what behind the why is.
Mhm.
Somebody just said that 90 days is not enough for the complexities of our field. So
And I
yeah,
will agree 100%.
Some
so
people 90 days isn't long enough. Some people who have experience 90 days is good.
okay.
And then
So
I
go
was
ahead,
going to say,
Brian.
you do have some facilities that says, okay, you have to be certified within that 1 year.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then I'm gonna start at month 4, because you asked the question about with the certification and those types of things.
Mhm.
I'm one of those people that I do it with my staff. I give up weekends. I go in. Hey, let's get this done. We start classes. We do this, and I feel like this. I want the buy-in, and I feel like as a manager, if I show my staff that I am serious about the growth of who they are and what we do as an organization, then I'm gonna get some buy-in from them. I've done it with several other people. To date, I've had 30 people that I've gotten certified. I'm proud of that. Some people have done a whole lot more, but the difference is I'm not asking nobody to pay me for anything. I bought the books, I did the class on my own, and just to be able to have somebody come back and tell you that they appreciate the things that you've done, that spoke volumes to me.
Yeah,
So, it's not about the money. It's about giving somebody else something that they feel good about for themselves to move forward. I think the biggest thing for anybody is to have somebody supersede what you've done. I've had
Right.
5 people. I was able to stand on a stage and actually talk to 5 other people about where they are in their life, and 2 of them superseded where I am, and I'm proud of that. They send me things all the time. Thank you. Look, I just wanted you to be successful. So I'm glad you did it, and just know I'm here if you need me.
Right. I love it when my old employees reach out to me and ask me questions. Like, should I call the compliance number or should I just call OSHA? So I like those text messages, but I
that's a
like
little
it.
different right
It's
there.
people that were once under me and how far they've gone.
Okay. Brian started getting into something that I was going to ask. Certification at your particular institutions, is it mandatory? And if so, how do you get them prepared? I heard you say you would come in and do classes. I am the same way. I've sat down with books, went over, and we went through the book together. My own personal training program. Like again, like you, it's not about money and all of this. It's me trying to get my staff ready for the next step of their evolution. So,
Correct.
Yep.
is it mandatory for your facility? And again, I know you said you do some training on your own, but what other things are we doing to help them get there?
Um, case in point, you know, we work in a union environment, so there are some things that we can't do. As you
Yeah.
know, ST91 has made some changes, and the requirement is that anybody that does scopes have to be certified.
Yes.
So a lot of times you have to be very creative of how you're going to do things. That being said, I couldn't go and tell my staff that, you know, you have to be certified to do the scopes.
Right.
So I made it different. I said, I tell you what, I did a wall of fame. I took everybody's certifications and I put them up there and I did them in a nice thing and I put this little thing to make it look good. And I said, I tell you what, everybody that gets certified, there's this particular place that they like for me to go to get these cinnamon rolls. If everybody gets their certification, I'm going to buy the cinnamon rolls. And the cinnamon rolls are huge. So I do those types of things. You got to know, everybody looking at the comments, everybody keeps saying, know your audience. My staff and even Arlene would tell you, if I say I'm going to cook something, everybody's like, oh my God. Okay. And then they get this request of what I'm going to do, but I'm only going to do it if you do this.
Yeah.
So it's a barter system. And I'm being honest, all but 5 of my people are certified with scopes. I have other people, well, no, I'm sorry, all but 6. 3 of those 6 just submitted to do it. And the other 3, they're on the fence. Some of them are like, I don't want to do it. The one of them particular person that doesn't want to do it, she don't want to be in the department no more anyway. So at this point, again, know your audience. I know I'm never going to convince her to do it. I know she's probably not going to do it. She's not, and that's fine. But with the rest of my staff, look, if food is going to get them to do it, then I'm going to cook for you all day long.
All of my staff have their initial certifications. Some have all 4. Some are working on the other. I've been really talking up this CER pilot test, trying to get my staff to do that. I only have 2 people on staff that are CER certified, so we are really pushing the CER right now.
All right, I just see some comments that I want to just get to. I know it's going to go backwards a little bit, but Bernard made a comment that he said that if you get the staff to learn the names and the uses, the assembly part of it first, like for new techs, learning the instrument names, the services, the tray uses before, makes the cleaning easier. I know we said we started decon, but if they're learning the names of the instruments, learning the uses of the instruments, putting them together on the assembly side before they go into decon, I mean, either way, the argument is, do you think that that is typically where it should be, that they're learning about the instruments first?
And let me tell you why I'm going to say no. The reason why I'm going to say no is this. Right now, the argument within our field is this. Everybody is saying, oh, you got to go with the change, and change is coming and it's going to happen. And it is. Everybody's going to an automated system. 90%, well, I ain't going to say 90. Let's say 70% of the people are using a computer automated system to do things. Now, let's just be real. I'm probably one of the dinosaurs in this industry, and I'm sure that other people out there will say the same thing. Myself, Damian Berg, Tony Thurman, you, Ken, all of us. We didn't have an instrument tracking system, so we were required to know the names of the instruments. Right now, with SensorTrack, what they're doing now is every instrument has to be barcoded. So with the barcode, we're scanning it. Now, I don't know about nobody else, but I watch my staff. And when I go in and I look and I watch my staff do trays, let me tell you what they do. Check, 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 check. Tray is done. They're making sure that the indicator's in. We're boxing it up and we're sending it on its way. So you tell me, if I put somebody in a system, put somebody on the clean side that has an instrument tracking system, how are they going to know the names? They're not. All they're going to do is check a box. Because the moment that you take away the computer and the computer is down, I guarantee you I will put my entire check on it that nobody will know the name.
I mean, that's a fair statement. I mean, yeah. I've seen it in several different scenarios that whenever you have downtime and the computers go down, I mean, it is one of those type of scenarios. Jesse just said he doesn't agree. If you put a scrub tech in decon, they would be lost, even though they're supposed to know the instrument. So I definitely get both sides of the coin on that one.
Yeah.
I heard y'all talk about it. Is certification mandatory at your facility?
No, it's preferred.
No, the So the VA has its own certification that is required, and everybody is required to do the CRMST.
Mhm.
It's no different than the CRCST. So one of the things that we're trying to do is to get them. What's the point of having a separate one when we're doing the exact same thing, and the information that you take to do the CRMST, it's the same practice test that you do for the CRCST. So why not just incorporate it into that and just require everybody to be certified through HSPA or CBSPD, whichever you deem necessary. But
Right.
why create one within itself? And if these people were to ever want to go someplace different, they can't take it with them.
Right.
Tony just made an interesting comment. He said that for the CRCST, you can't test until you're signed off on 400 hours, and it's very rare that a tech can learn each of your areas within that 400 hours. So he thinks the books and the preparing the test must wait till after they're properly trained as well.
There you go.
Yeah, because that 400 hours is definitely sometimes like right. It's very rare that somebody gets it in that 400 hours. The
Yep.
additional thing that I actually added to my training program is that I actually have them in the OR looking at cases as well. So at the end, I let them go see a case and how instruments are actually used. So they see the whole completion of the process. So yeah, I definitely get all of that. And I appreciate, like I said, from a Brian standpoint, yes, us dinosaurs, as he called us, the tracking system definitely makes it easier for these newer
Yep.
techs that have the tracking system. Um, so in that, putting it all together now, you have that new tech. We're getting them trained. You said the process there is that the certification is mandatory, but it's a different setup. In your particular area, is there a career ladder that you have in place to say, like you have non-certified, they get certified, they move up, they get additional certifications, they move up, and so on and so forth. And if they do, I heard you talk about a cinnamon roll. That's definitely a good motivator. But is there other incentives that you have in place when there are multi certifications that they have under their belt?
In private healthcare, I did. Yes, sir.
Yes,
We
in the
had a
private
career
healthcare,
ladder in private healthcare.
in the VA system, no, and
Yeah.
that's simply because we fall up under a, a system to where we have steps.
Yeah.
And based upon those steps, there's a certain amount of time. It's 15 years before you max out with those particular steps. So with getting the certification, that was one of the questions that we did ask. And that was one of the things that came up in our last meeting with everybody. With the VA system, it's one of the biggest healthcare systems that are out there. And the thing is, if I want to ask a question, I can ask the question to all 257 hospitals at the same time.
Yeah.
Here's the problem of why we can't do the steps. You can't do the steps because it's a bargaining. It's a bargaining union employee, which
Okay.
means that if it's to go and make that situation happen, it's a lot of red tape to where you have to go through the union. This thing has to be done, so on and so forth. And the reason they don't do it is because if you got a person that has been there for realistic 15 years, and you get someone that just got hired in, but they may have all the certifications and they may have a wealth of knowledge, they're not going to allow you to bring that person in making more than the person that's already there.
Oh, wow.
So there's a stop at the door to not allow that to happen. And on one hand, it may not be, some people may feel like it's not the best thing, but when you sit back and look at it, and I'm sure that all of us have been in places to where you've been at a job. I've been at a job to where I was the supervisor for 3, 4, 5 years, and they decided to bring in another supervisor, and they brought that supervisor in making anywhere from $6,000 to $7,000 more than me because of they may have had a degree or whatever. One thing that I can say in the VA system, they're not going to let that happen.
Yeah.
So from a private sector to the VA system, the experience doesn't count.
It's not that the experience doesn't count. Here's
Right.
the thing. hypothetically based on the pay scale, and you got to remember it's based off of the area that you're in. Locality is different from each place.
Right.
Where I am is more locality than where Arlene is. So my techs are automatically going to get paid more because it's the cost of living where I live is higher than hers. So in that 10 step to bring a person in, I can take your experience into consideration. But let's say you have 15 years of experience, you have all your certifications, and my max out is $62,000 a year. My bringing a person in could be $50,000 a year. I can put you in between, but what I'm not going to do is put you closer to that max out area because I got people that have been there longer than you, and they're here's the thing. In the private sector, no one knows your salary unless you tell it, right?
Right.
In the VA system, your salary is public knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can go online and see what you make at any time. So imagine this. I'm me and you both are techs, Kenneth, and you have 15 years with a bachelor's degree and all the certifications. I have 20 years of service, but I have all the certifications, but I don't have a bachelor's degree. Well, if they bring you in and they pay you more than what they're paying me, you can't hide it from me because I'm going to find out. It's public knowledge. So the moment I find out, what do you think is going to happen within the department?
That's the ascension in the department now.
Yep.
So what is a new person or what is somebody looking to join that facility? What is their motivation for?
Well, you have to remember there are 10 different, there's different steps.
Yeah.
Most of the people that have been there, we'll say 12 years. Those people are step 8, 9, or 10. You understand what I'm saying? And they're making pretty decent money. If I got a new person in, I would bring that new person based on the experience. I'll probably bring them in at an 8, but I'm not going to put them past people that have been there longer than you that has to go through the process to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to remember those steps in between, they're going to pay pretty well, but I'm not going to bring you in making more than somebody that's been there a little bit longer than you because I can't move that person because of legal reasons and because of the union. I can't max that person out just because I'm bringing you in. I can't. Legally, I can't touch it.
Okay. So we're going to take another brief commercial. And then when we come back, we're going to tie all this together to see where that new person is in their training. What is the motivation of, I guess, the step versus the private sector? Because in the private sector, we can do a little bit different as far as when somebody has experience, not experience, and the latter, and so forth and so forth. So after this commercial, we'll get back to it. Again, very big shout out to Calzuro for sponsoring this and making this happen. Big shout out to Knowledge and Nonsense for allowing us the platform to bring this type of energy to the business itself. So we started out with a new person in the department, different training levels, whether that be 90 days, whether that be 6 months. I've seen some comments where it said the despite the 400 hours, they've seen provisional people outperform somebody who's been there, and that's just because the person gets it. We don't hold them. We don't try to hold them people back. We at least let them keep going. Um, I see Jesse said keeping a new hire is all about culture and transparency. Again, we talked about the culture part of it last week, and now the transparency of it is start them in decon. Hey, this is what the meat and potatoes of what you're doing. If you can't cut it in decon, you're not gonna make it. Some people say, hey, let's start them on the clean side so they can see the functionality, learn the names, and go and so on and so forth. Is there a right way? Is there a standardized way? What should we all be looking at as an industry, as a business?
I mean, I don't know if it's going to be standardized, but I can tell you that every place that I've ever worked, and I've worked at a lot of different places, we've always started in decon. Even when I started at the VA, when I started as a supervisor, I told them, look, within the first 30 days, I said, treat me like I'm new. I want to know your processes. I want to know what you do so that if I start saying that we need to change certain things, I understand and know the processes. That's why I'm telling you that we need to change. So my first week at this facility, I worked in decon with the staff for the first week. And I'm glad I did because I got to see what actually comes down, how they send their things down, the instrumentation that they have, the processes of how they do certain things, what was required. So, I think this goes back to the same thing. We're all going to have opinions about the situation of how we feel like it should be. But I'm me personally, I'm just basing it on my experience. I mean, the 27th of this month will be 31 years that I've been doing this. And in the 31 years, I learned from doing it from decon and understanding the processes of why I'm taking things apart and why it needs to be cleaned this way and why you can't do certain things. And, there was a particular tray that we got in the back and, I knew because I had been doing it for a while. So I knew to take it apart. This person was back there in decon and I'm with them and they processed this tray and they got ready to put it in the washer. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. That don't put that in the washer because you didn't take this apart. And I guarantee you there's blood on the inside of it. No, that doesn't come apart. So I took it apart and I showed the person and they were like, but that could have been a sentinel event had it gone upstairs to the OR and they got ready to use it on a patient.
So in that aspect of just from what you just said, when it's not you and you have somebody training or you put that person with somebody, how do we, since it's not standardized, how do we know that they're getting the same training that they would get if the manager was showing them?
And again, I go back to knowing your audience and knowing that particular person that you're going to team the person up with to be trained in that area.
Right.
I'm not going to put it this way. In the PDs, one of the things that the PD states is that every staff member is supposed to assist with the training of a new employee.
Yep.
Everybody isn't able to train. And I think a lot of people feel like, oh, but well, let me ask a question. If the PD stated that you had to stand up in front of a large audience and present and speak to them every single day, what would happen? Everybody doesn't like standing in front of an audience or doing public speaking. Everybody isn't able to do that. Everybody can't be the Damian Blurgs and I love the thing that Jesse does, but everybody can't be a Jesse. I love what he does. And when it comes to learning the names of instrumentation and things of that nature, you said resources. That's a valuable resources. I give my staff his information. I say, hey, look this up. The person will tell you about things. I told Jesse when I saw him for the first time that he did something about bandage scissors. I've been dealing with this for so long. I never understood the thing that you do with the bandage scissors. Right. But the moment he did it, it was like an aha moment. And I promise you, I gave it to my staff. I take some of the things that he just did. We were just talking about breast sizers 2 weeks ago. He just did something on breast sizers. So it's like, when you find somebody that has that passion that can do what you can't do, you use it. So I thank him every day for the things that he does, because he makes my job, he makes it lovable again, because I'm not doing this by myself. I have somebody else that's just as passionate, making sure that the staff understands these processes and doing the things that needs to get done. Because as a leader, you may have that passion, but you can't be everywhere at all times.
Shameless plug, but Mr. Sterapie himself will be on the show next week, just a FYI. So we will get the benefit of sharing some of his insights next week. So that is definitely something I'm looking forward to. So he is going to be in the building next week. Time to talk. He will be here. And I agree. Whenever we find people that can assist in the training, or you do training a different way. Like I've given out people's blogs and let people listen to people's podcasts, because sometimes it's that extra person that's when they get it. Like you said, that aha moment is when somebody else is saying it. I put out something a little while ago that I asked, what is the proper way to doff in decon? Everybody had a different answer. But then when you look at the book, they're like, okay, that's the way it's supposed to be done. But then when you, like I said, you look and you get other people involved, and now you're seeing what we're saying. So that's why I asked, like, so when you give somebody the book and they read it and it says, oh, you're supposed to do A, B, C, and then they go back in with you and you're like, well, I do it this way. And then they're confused because they're reading one thing and then doing one thing. So that's where we get into the, is it too soon? Is it not too soon? As they say, you got to go through those 400 hours. In that 400 hours, it puts you where you need to be as far as you can sit for the test, but are you ready?
Right.
And I'll say this, a lot of us, there's a particular person that I have the utmost respect for, and I tell that person, we had a conversation because we had an impasse, and I think it came across the wrong way, and I think the way that we spoke about certain things, both of us took it the way it was said. This is why I make sure when you say resources, I surround myself with people that's not going to be afraid to call me on my BS. I'm gonna say it that way. Ms. Combs called me out on something that I said. I wrote it because I wrote it the way I felt it, and it wasn't the right thing to do, but I did. And she challenged me to contact the person and fix it, and I did. And what I can tell you is this: once we sat down and had the conversation about the situation of what we were discussing and what we were talking about, we realized that we're saying the same thing, we're just saying it differently. He's saying it based on the fact that he wants to see a change within the industry. I'm saying it based on the fact that I live this every single day. And all I was saying to the person was this: be mindful and be careful of the things that you say, because you don't understand and know the people whose shoulders that you're standing on. And when you do things a certain way, I was fighting for something that I know I was going to possibly win. But because this person made a comment about something and they did this whole thing about it, they set me back 20 years. And I had to start all the way over. So I think by having those conversations and using those resources, we better understand each other. We know now, okay, hey, I'm like I told them, no one's trying to stifle you or get you to the point to where you can't speak your mind. I want you to do that every day. I listen to your stuff every day, but just because I don't respond don't mean that I'm not listening. But I need you to understand, when you say certain things, you got to think about those particular people who've been in this for 30 years plus, that have fought this fight to get you to where you are to be able to do the things that you do. And that's why I say, when people say resources, people are resources. You find those people with like minds that has the passion to do the things that you do, and you move forward. My staff, a lot of people do things that I can't do. I can speak to you about sterile processing. I can get you to understand my passion for it. But every single day, my staff, when it comes to learning stuff, wanting to know things, I let my staff, they all crowd around one computer. And when Beyond Clean comes on, they do the whole day. It's on their computers. They're walking through the hallways with them on the thing. So I thank God for people like Hank Bulch for doing the things that he did. I thank God for those people for doing the things that they do, because look, it is changing. But I just think everybody needs to understand that, yes, there's always going to be change. But remember something, even with cars, We change cars, we do all these updated things and all this stuff, but guess what? When the car breaks down, if you don't get one of the mechanics that know all the things that needs to be done, guess what? You're stuck because can't nobody fix it.
Yep.
So it goes back to people like yourself, Kenneth, like you, like Jesse, like Damien, um, Tony Thurman. You know, we've done this for so long. It's not that we're being complacent, but we also know that systems goes down. When that computer goes off and you can't scan that instrument and you don't know the name of it, then how you gonna get it done?
True.
What's the process?
People get nervous when they can't find the master count sheet book.
Yeah. And then my last point, Kenneth, is this. Me and Arlene, we had a knockout, drag out fight about productivity because Arlene came up in an age where there was always computers to add up your productivity and that type of things. And then when I explained to her, wait a minute, when I was doing this, we had to count pill packs. All of that stuff takes time. It took almost 4 hours for her to get what I was saying. But once I explained it and she got it, then she's like, oh. I said, so what would you do if that computer didn't add up all the things that you did for productivity? How you gonna go to the C-suite and explain it then?
Right.
Because I'm very much report driven. I really am. I'm a data person. I'm a scientific person. So I want to pull reports. I want to look at what stuff people are doing. I want to see, hey, that was a really complex trade. And it only took you 14 minutes to do it, but it takes everybody else 45.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
So Arlene, one thing for you that I'll have you lead the group with, if you had to sit down with that new person and you had to give them a piece of advice for going forward and realizing what they've stepped into this sterile processing world, what would you give them as the fruits of your knowledge? What would you give them to go forward with?
Stay humble. Stay humble. Our industry is ever changing. People, it's a high stress profession we're in, right? In medical, people are always at different levels. People are being yelled at different times and whatever. Things seem to always roll downhill. And just because it's occurred now doesn't mean that's how they feel really when they get out of work. So stay humble. Everybody has a gift. Some open theirs later than others.
That is true. Same question, Brian. What would you pass on to somebody going forward?
I would tell people be a sponge. You know, ask those questions, be in the room, and just be a sponge. Because my father was in the military, and one of the things he used to always say, it's better to be seen than to be heard. And a lot of times I go to meetings and Arlene laughs at me when we do this, when we be on calls and, you know, people are calling my name with different things, but a lot of times I don't say anything. And when I'm not speaking, I hear everything. And I get answers to things that I need answers to just by listening. So be a sponge. When you walk into any situation, I don't care if it's a Fortune 500 company and you're making 6 figures, be a sponge. Don't always have to be the person that needs to be seen, but sometimes just be a sponge, and you never know how far you can go by being a sponge. I tell people all the time when they come and ask me something, my boss be like, but that's not our job. It is today.
I appreciate that. Again, I want to thank you both so much for joining me here tonight. I really appreciate the conversation, giving people insight as to the training, letting people know there is no one way to do it. Everybody, as we saw, has a different take on where to start. When do we give the book? We're all in this as together. As y'all hear me say all the time, this is our family. We're just having general conversation, talking about the things that we would be talking about sitting in the living room. That we don't want to be talking about work, but hey, we're family that all do the same thing. Like, so we have.
We're always going to be talking about work.
We try not to, but it happens. But again, that insight, I appreciate you both. Thank you, family. It's been a pleasure. Again, same time next week. Y'all hear the clock ticking. Y'all know what that means. It's time to talk. Thank you, Knowledge and Nonsense. Thank you, Calzura. I appreciate you. See you again soon, family.
Thank you for having us on.
Thank you.
Thank you.